What's that? Yes, I have. How are you? Yes, I'm Miss Diana. How are you doing? Okay. This is not a comfortable area for Skyler. It's hard to keep the thoughts away when he spent, we've got some vehicles here that have spent some time here, and it's pretty uncomfortable. And if it gets uncomfortable to any significant degree, we'll just do something about it, okay? So I just want you to move your chair a little bit, or any of you that want to move your chair where I can comfortably see you, because I'd like a good view of your face if I can. Well, we're still waiting to hear from Sunodi and from Gabodi on their way down from Eugene, but they're going to try to get here tonight, so that's what we're hoping. Well, goodness. I'm going to address most of our conversation to the new ones. And when I say the new ones, I mean new ones in the past few months or since we began to hold meetings, and to returnees, because we have several return students. And since I saw some of those students, we've had a lot of updates in our information. It's very interesting how our information, we don't ever get any absolute information. We don't ever get anything that's true. But we get something that's true for the moment. In other words, it's always updated. We always find after we get something that we're so excited about understanding, then a short time later we get something new, and it outdates that and makes it obsolete. But what we're so excited about then is the new information that is true for the time that it's true. And so some of the students that were with T and me for years will find that we've had quite a number of updates.
I don't know if this was pretty known, but that table leg doesn't look like it's out all the way. So.
And you don't want to see me fall?
Try pulling it out. So it's that little window.
Is that okay now?
That was water, I hope.
Is this on, by the way?
The tank is, yes.
Okay.
We hope.
All right, now I am going to ask that you, good little students, sit up straight and don't cross your legs, and don't slouch, and don't do your hands like this. Just relax, and because we don't have any techniques as far as how to hold our hands or how to receive information. Did you get them? They're in Fairfield? Okay, so what does that mean? A couple of hours away, or is that about?
I could be wrong, it's about 2 hours from Fairfield.
Okay, and they can listen to this tape, and then we'll have another meeting if we find another campground, because this one may be DC tonight. Well, this we have to be out of here 8 a.m., right? Well, I'll try not to be too long-winded. For starters, I want the new ones, in particular, to have no hesitation about asking me questions. And just raise your hand, and as soon as I get to a moment where I can stop, I'll acknowledge your question. Don't worry about whether your question seems stupid or insignificant, or you just want to hear whatever Joe has to say. I'm very interested in what you're asking, where your questions are, because that helps me a lot to know where we can interface and how I can help you. Now, it takes a long time in this classroom, and some students who've been in the classroom a long time still have difficulty in listening. because to me and to T, listening means that you don't let your wheels turn while you're listening. You're just receiving. Instead of every time you receive something, if you then listen to the assimilation of that and how that thought affects all your other programming, for the time you're listening to that, you're not listening to me. So it's hard to get into a mode where you're simply just receiving and trying not to let the assimilation of your computer hinder your further listening. We're going to talk about things that humans don't know how to talk about, and they not only don't talk about, but there is no structure in their logic to understand some of the things that we're going to talk about. Human logic is to the next level, like elementary school is to high school. And there are some things that we simply don't understand, like, well, let me give you an example. The next level does things at times that really challenge our understanding of fairness, because they know how to judge what they do in ways that we would really question the fairness of. Let me give you an example. Well, that's too big of an example. Let me think of another. Well, some of you have, well, goodness, I don't know where to start. Let's go to the little thought of reincarnation and get rid of it, so that then we can move to something that will have you understanding more some of the things we want to talk about. For years and years, T and I thought that reincarnation applied to every soul, and that souls even came up from domesticated animals, and if those souls only wanted to be with human beings and didn't like being with their pack anymore, that they, in other words, let's say if a dog was in a human family and the dog didn't like other dogs, he considered himself a human, and he only liked to please his human masters, then we thought, well, that soul might move right up into that human family and take a human vehicle and stand in line for it. Now, I have a different understanding of that now, and I'm still adjusting to the new understanding of it because it has so many implications. And this new understanding is that a soul, what we call a soul, what we're going to use the term soul for, is something that happens to an individual that has received a little chip or a little deposit from the next level that begins then to form a different container for information than a vehicle had before. A human vehicle, its mechanism, its genetic background, its environment, when the vehicle expresses its genetic background, its education, then what it is expressing is an audible manifestation of the spirit of the vehicle. Now, I'm using spirit in the term that you're probably accustomed to hearing soul used. And I'm, believe it or not, I'm trying to use spirit in a term that isn't spiritual. And that's kind of funny to play with, but let's just redefine the term spirit, and I feel like it's probably the most accurate definition of spirit, that spirit, my spirit or your spirit, is the manifestation of what my package is. In other words, my genetic background, what I've learned in my environment, the education that I've been through, there's an invisible kind of plasma, and I don't want to get spiritual here, but there's an invisible manifestation of me that forms, that is actual substance, though we can't discern it scientifically, only because of human limitations. I'm sure the next level can easily discern it scientifically. But that spirit, then when a human body or vehicle dies, that spirit then leaves that body, and that spirit is the sum total of information and judgment and whatever that individual was at the time the vehicle left, or the vehicle collapsed. And then that spirit can be in what we call the discarnate world. And that spirit can then go invade other vehicles. If other vehicles will permit it to invade, it will invade other vehicles. And in that sense, even then theoretically, the possibility exists that spirits of animals, which would be the invisible manifestation of what they were, their intelligence, their judgment, that those spirits also leave those animals. So the invisible is filled with spirits. Now let's say that the next level has a garden, and they start the garden clean, and there are no vehicles, and therefore no vehicles have died, and there are no spirits. So it's when vehicles then collapse or can no longer function, then a spirit begins to associate in the spirit world. And depending upon the relationship it might have with a vehicle, or the desire that was in that spirit, will depend upon whether that spirit will try to timeshare with a vehicle, whether it be a human vehicle or any other animal type vehicle. Now, at a given time in history, then the next level comes and they can wipe out the vehicles, eliminate the spirits. I'm sure if they wanted to, they could come even while the vehicles are running all over the planet and take masses of spirits away if they chose to eliminate some of the unseen world. But these spirits also then this is a very strange thing, and this surpasses human logic, but these spirits will, of their own volition, do things that the next level has it designed that they're doing those things permits us an opportunity for growth. Now let's say, for example, and this is just hypothetical, but let's say that one of your vehicles recently lost what the vehicle would have considered a loved one. And that loved one, the vehicle was lost, and so that individual went into the spirit world. Now, what happens to that individual when it goes into the spirit world is dependent upon what that individual thinks is going to happen to it when it goes into the spirit world. Like if it believed in Ekankar and it's going to create its own Ekankar, then it goes with other Ekankars and they find their Ekankar and they do their Ekankar, and that's what it was. If they consider that they were going to heaven, or they were going to serve as guardian angel or whatever, to what degree they are permitted to. I think some spirits are actually shocked when they get in the discarnate world, because they find it. They thought they would go, to someplace else, and that it would be some kind of environment that, whatever they thought, whether it was harps on clouds or meeting all the saints from past history or whatever they anticipate. And I think some are shocked and they have to adjust to being here on this planet in the spirit world. And why wouldn't they be? Because the spirit is always attached to whatever the spirit was attached to when it was in a vehicle. Whatever its cravings were, whatever its ties were, that it stays with those cravings, it stays with those ties. If you take the near-death experiences that I'm sure that many of you have read about, when people will leave their body, or spirits will leave their body on a hospital surgery circumstance, and they will go through what they imagine to be a tunnel of light, and they meet other members of their family waiting for them. And I suspect that that's very true, and those members of the family will help them adjust to what it is that they have gone to. Now, if they left those vehicles tied to those members of their family, and those members of their family also still felt ties to them, they will hang around there. It's just like if some individual was very tied to his homestead and he loses his vehicle, his spirit's going to hang around that homestead, and it might hang around there with his great-grandfather and the great-great-grandfather, and whenever, until the next level comes along with a vacuum, and vacuums up the spirits and does whatever they do with them depending upon their level of development and what they deserve. Now, so spirit is a term that we're now using for the invisible being that exits a vehicle when the vehicle drops. Except there's another whole category, and that category is when the workers in the next level, who are assigned the task periodically to choose certain human vehicles, and they will then give them physically some little chip or deposit. Then I don't pretend to be able to describe what it is that they give to them. I wouldn't assume to know that. I'm not meant to know that. If I am, I've failed because I certainly don't understand it. But and this little thing that they were given makes them have a little recognition for someone else who has that little chip. And they feel a kinship with someone else who has that chip. When they hear an expression of next level information, then they have a recognition. They say, goodness, I've heard this before, I've known this all my life, or whatever their way of expressing that. They recognize that because that little gift was given to them. Now, here are a bunch of people sitting out here that I'm assuming all have that little chip of recognition, or you wouldn't be sitting here unless you're just sitting here because you're on an adventure trying to find out, what is this cooperative league? And I'm trying to make my way from one call to the other to really see what they do. Okay, now what I started off to tell you about was the next level's idea of fairness. Why is it that some person may receive that little chip of recognition, and they may find their overcoming of their human ways, their addictions, and the destruction of human ways that interfere with their change in accepting the next level ways. One vehicle might find that a fairly simple change, a fairly easy change. Another one just works and works and works and works, at least they think they're working, very, very hard, and they don't seem to make much progress in this area or that area. And they can look at one of their classmates and say, what's it with so-and-so who finds it so easy to make this transition here? Why am I having such a hard time? And it could easily be thought of as unfair. Now, I do not know the criteria that the next level would use in going and giving that little chip of recognition to vehicles. And it's not up to me to question that criteria, because that's not my task. My task is to come and work with those who have that chip and help them in their change. Now, what T and I have always felt the truth was that the next level, and I say that we felt it this way, and I have not yet seen evidence that makes me feel differently. But T and I always felt that the next level did not give someone a chip of recognition who was incapable of change, incapable of making the transition from human to next level. And we also thought that when it was very difficult for someone to make that change in overcoming the addictions of their brain patterns or their likes for this or their dislikes for having to do what someone else says instead of what they would like to do at whatever impulse that they might have, that whatever difficulty they deal with in overcoming humanism builds strength, which the next level finds a very important characteristic of service, building strength. So in order to change and become a yielding putty in the hands of the next level does not mean watery, weak putty that falls through the hands. It means putty that is very strong but pliable. In other words, strength is developed because you had to work and work and work like crazy. Now, one other aspect that I must mention is that some souls, now, when you have received that chip, then that chip has with it the capacity of starting what we'll call a container for next level mind. In other words, something can be built in the area of that vehicle and that spirit that is next level mind, and something is being built, and we'll call the container that is present after the next level has given a chip, we'll call that the soul. And then the soul is receiving next level information. Now when Scripture says, Christian Scripture says that you're going to become a new creature, that is not symbolism. That is a fact as far as I can tell. And what is meant by a new creature is that you drop all of the characteristics that were your old identity. And that's tough. That's difficult. And it's hard to let go of them. And you might find it easy to let go of some of those characteristics, like maybe 1 through 117 was easy to let go of. You got to 118 and it was tough. And you're feeling when you're faced with 118, you say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even have, I just can't even, I don't know who I am. And that, of course, is when you're at a very critical, excellent place to be, because you are losing your old identity. In other words, what is going to fill your spirit, and that spirit is in that soul, is the mind of the next level. Now, the mind of the next level came from the next level. I mean, it is present in the next level. Those individuals who are in the next level possess varying amounts and degrees of next level mind. My older member possesses more of that than I possess. My older member must feel, and my older member's older member must feel, that I possess enough of it to help you begin to possess more of it. Now, the more of it that you possess, it's like this container, this soul, can only hold so much stuff. And I have to abort programming, abort the essence of what I was, my genetic emanation, manifestation, my learned mind. I have to abort it piece by piece in order to accept more next level mind in. That means that the more you accept next level mind in, you're going to sound like your older member. You're going to use the same vocabulary, Your thoughts are going to be structured more and more the same way. You can have an influence with you that does not want to make that change, that feels that that is invasive, or feels that that is somehow or other not proper. Listen, I feel honored to accept it, because it is the very mind of my Creator that has been channeled down through levels and generations of, from older members to younger members and so forth. It is the mind of the Creator. Now, I have a little bit of it compared with some that are older members in the next level. But any resistance that you have to give up your human mind, you're going to have to face that quickly and decide whether or not you're willing to let go of it. Giving up your human mind, get down to practical aspects of giving up your human mind. That means giving up your likes and dislikes, your habits, your ways, what you respect, what you like as far as use of vernacular is concerned, or how you like the way your brain works, or you like, to spend so many hours walking, or so much time in the bathtub, or to consume certain things, or and we invariably, the very things that are hard for you to let go of will be spotlighted and will be seen as major issues to you. You have to give up your judgment. You have to go through, it's like that little tiny hole in the hourglass, that when you have lost your humanness enough and you're beginning to receive next level mind, when you're in that little tiny hole in that hourglass, it's like, I don't know who I am. I have finally become wise enough to know that I have no judgment. And the only judgment I'm going to have and want is the judgment that is passed down to me from the next level through my older member. Now that's real, sounds real pretty to talk about. In application, it's tough. It's plain old hard work. Anytime that you have resistance from change, of influence, or any resistance that does not want to let go of certain likes or dislikes or judgment or assessment, you are at that moment receiving, and you are hosting an influence which is a gift from the next level. Now that sounds, the next level sends me the bad guys, and that's right. Actually, the bad guys go after you to defeat you, because that's the way the Creator designed it. And the Creator says, I have designed it this way, and if you want me, if you want my world, then as I let those bad guys go to pursue you, they can be the very instrument of your strength, your change, your battle to win against change. Any rebellion that I have is an influence that is trying to challenge me, trying to have me not accomplish this change, and it was permitted to come to me and in a sense sent to me. Now, my older member T has not gone back to some distant place and is involved totally with other tasks, even though I feel that T does other tasks other than help you and help me. But I feel sometimes that I can just instantly say, like I said to Rodi when Rodi said the other day, was when I got to New Mexico, he said all of a sudden these influences just started ganging up on me, and up until I got to New Mexico, I felt so great, I felt so free, I wasn't having these influences to deal with. And I said, Rodi, T sent you those influences. Because T was challenging his commitment, testing him, seeing whether or not he wanted to make that change. Do you think we're having visitors? Can we stop the tape a moment? What's that? Okay, let's wait a second. Just leave us talk. Because nobody's hand has gone up, and I'm sure that I have sailed past some things that the danger in my talking to you like this is that it can so easily sound like highfalutin, etheric, religious or spiritual information. And yet, if that is what I am trying to prohibit it from sounding that way. I'm trying to make it practical, real application of real stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I'm correctly. A deposit is given to a vehicle which is housing the spirits.
Okay, yes, and good question. I'm glad you brought that back in. Okay, finish your question.
Well, I was just, and once the deposit is made, you have a soul beginning.
That's right. You have the beginning, you have a little soul that has the capacity to grow because the soul is going to contain next level mind. So the more it grows, it's like you've got two containers happening here. Or you've got the spirit of this individual that's trying to abort in order to make room for the soul to contain more next level mind. Okay, now let's say the next level goes in the year 600 BC or 4000 BC, and the next level visited with someone and gave them a deposit and sent a member of the next level to relate to that one and nourish that deposit. And humanism began to be aborted by the hard work effort of the individual. Every individual, you know this old thing of Christians debating all the time over once saved, always saved. You're saved as long as you're saved. What you're saved is, what are you saved from? You're saved from being separated from the next level, being separated from the kingdom of God. But you're only saved as long as you pursue with your effort growth and development and service and getting rid of selfish desires, and as long as you please the next level. Here's another thing that may not seem very fair to a lot of spiritual people, is that next level doesn't mind giving you the boot. And a lot of times they do you service by giving you the boot. They will give you the boot, and if you're made of anything, you'll come back and say, please don't give me the boot. What does it take for me to prove to you I don't want the boot? And the next level say, well, I think I've heard you say that before, so maybe you better go on your way. And they'll go their way, and they'll turn around a week later, 6 weeks later, and say, I don't want this. I want to go to the next level. And so they come back and they say, next level, is there any way you can open your door to me again? And the next level then says, whoever it is that's dealing with that individual says, up the chain of command to their older member, what do you say? You want to give this person another chance? And they say, okay, we'll give them a chance. You cannot get rid of your free will. You cannot, even when you're in the kingdom of heaven, an older member has the free will to go awry. Anytime that older member thinks that he is not dependent upon his older member, he is on the threshold of going awry. Now get that again. Anytime any individual in the next level, in the kingdom of heaven, thinks that they are not totally dependent upon the one that is assigned to nourish them, they are on the threshold of going awry. When they think that they've gotten so big that they can do something on their own, or they can go and create, and that's the higher you go in the next level, the easier that is to do. It's our understanding, and it may be wrong, that those who we call Luciferians, they weren't humans. They were ones who had been brought into the next level and learned a lot of next level knowledge and next level skills and next level ways that to humans would seem utterly phenomenal, just beyond belief. And yet as they chose to not acknowledge their necessary total need for their older member, only looking to their older member, only seeking to please their older member. But once self comes back in, as long as you have free will, you've always got that possibility of self coming right back in and saying, I'm tired of looking to someone else, or I've learned a lot of this. I have a contribution to make. And your older member says, well, if that's what you want to do, have at it. And your older member will say that. Many times in the classroom, people will tell me what they want to do. Students will tell me what they want to do, and I will say, have at it. And they'll learn a little while later, why did you say have at it? And I'll say, because I wasn't about to tell you, no, you couldn't do it. Because I sensed that what you wanted to do was do that. And I knew that if you were made of good stuff, that you would do it a little while and say, that wasn't the right thing to do. What should I be doing? I don't want to do this. But you always have free will. You cannot get rid of it. And the higher you go, the more you are tested with the easy access to going separate. What if you're in a relationship with your older member and you see your older member very, very seldom? Actually seeing physically your older member very, very seldom. And your mental relationship with your older member becomes somewhat artificial, or spiritual, or religious, rather than real. Separation has come in. And there are students in the class who still think that they can talk to me and get answers from me and from T when they're separate from us. And again and again and again I have seen that the answers they got were not real. Now there are ways that you can talk. You can ask for things. You can ask for help in this. You can ask to be stronger at overcoming this, or ask to get past this rebellion, and all these things that you can ask. And if your asking was really sincere and strong, the answers to that asking will be fulfilled. And that you can do when you're separate from your older member. You can do that asking. But if your asking is somewhat etheric or somewhat less than real, and some dream or some thought or something comes to you and answers that, if you've got any sense at all, you'll check out immediately with your partner and those in your group and with your older member before you act upon that which you thought might have been an answer. Because 9 times out of 10, it will not be right. Now, the next level, I'm going to repeat, will present you with answers to your requests if your requests are for advancement in getting closer to the next level. They'll always... Now, if your asking is mechanical, they're not going to pay any attention to it. I mean, they have to feel that your asking had oomph behind it. It had, and so, it's like when before T began to awaken, she liked doing horoscopes for people. But when T would do a horoscope for someone, it wasn't an ordinary horoscope. It wasn't something you could get out of Alan Leo's book or some other. It was magic. I mean, when I saw I never took horoscopes seriously, and when I met T and I asked T for a horoscope, I was in the same category of anybody else. And T wouldn't do a horoscope for anybody unless they asked her 3 times, and she would never let them know that she wouldn't do a horoscope unless they asked 3 times. So, I mean, she had to know that they really wanted it. After they had asked at least 3 times, T might share with them, well, I never do a horoscope for anybody if they haven't asked me 3 times. And this is the way the next level is. A lot of times if your asking seems shallow and are just systematic, like I go through my little routine of asking, it doesn't get you anywhere. When you're asking because you're hurting, because you're craving to get out of your deadlock of lack of progress, and you want control in areas that you don't have control, or you want beyond rebellion, or you want to learn restraint and you aren't getting anywhere in restraint, or you're talking too much, or you're not expressing yourself enough, whatever it is, but you're doing it because it is holding you back and you're tired of being held back, you'll get answers. And you'll get them fast, and they will come strong. And most of the time when you get an answer, you think, well, that wasn't what I expected. I didn't really want that kind of answer. But you'll be presented with a circumstance that will give you the perfect situation for that change which you asked for. But frequently your head is suddenly, your meter goes up and your whole horizon about the subject that you thought you were asking on becomes significantly increased, because you realize that your asking was one little tiny facet of that subject, and it really didn't hold as much significance as you thought it did until the answer to your request came. But members of the next level that T has supervision over, as far as I'm concerned, in relationship to this class, they have the ability to read the degree of your asking. Now, I have fussed in the groups that were out holding meeting, I have fussed at some of the overseers and others in the classroom for not paying enough attention to their patients. Because just for fun, I'm considering, or not just for fun, because it's applicable as an analogy. New ones are the patients. And patients, if you sit in your ward, if you sit in your hospital room, if you sit in your ward, new students, and you don't, when you have a need or you want to improve and the nurse is not tending you, you've got to push the buzzer or knock on the door or go down the hall and hunt out that nurse and ask for help. And also, in the same token, those of you who have had some experience in the ways that the new ones are working, you have to, without any confidence in the nurse who thinks that she's a doctor is the one that's going to always give the wrong remedy. But the one who merely goes to the doctor's order and fills the prescription or calls the doctor. Well, Gene Scott says the doctor's in. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you're in a classroom and the doctor's in. As long as I'm here, I'm your doctor. T is my doctor. I'm your doctor. Those in the classroom are your nurses, and you are the patient. Now, in that sense, all of you are patients. And the oldest ones of you, I am your nurse. Now, age is determined by development. How much you have developed, not by certainly the age of your vehicle. Now, Shinodi asked, what about this vehicle that received an implant? A little chip was given to it. Gave it recognition of information and recognition of other individuals who were carrying next level information. Okay, and we said, what if someone way back BC, some significant time, had a visit from someone from the next level, got a chip, had a relationship with an older member, learned some things, and lost the vehicle? Well, according to the theory we just went through, that individual, since that individual had an encounter, first it received a deposit, which started a pillowcase, a container for next level mind. Once it has next level mind in it, then we have a soul with mass. And then the next level can take that soul at the time that the vehicle collapses and do what it wants to with it. We usually use the term that it puts it on ice until it's time for it to have a chance to pick up where it left off with another representative of the next level to continue with its lessons. You might find a vehicle in this classroom that is 20 years old as far as the age of the vehicle is concerned, and yet it may have had more association and exerted more effort of change to get closer to the next level. That soul might have. So that others around it could be jealous of how easy that individual had it as far as making change and not having all this resistance and all this change. Now, if that individual has really received much next level mind, it's going to be more restrained. It's going to not have its feathers easily flustered, and it's not going to be self-concerned. It's going to be more concerned in how it can serve. It's going to be quicker to use we, talking about its partnership or its crew, than me and my needs and my concern. It's going to, even though it wants service, it's also going to be wise enough to know that when I want service too badly, I usually need to go through a period of seeming no service, because I can learn a great deal during times of wanting service and not being aware that I have the opportunity for significant service. That doesn't make sense in human logic either. And yet a lot of times the next level prepares us for service by giving us lengthy periods of very little service to test us, to see what are we going to do. If we don't have service by point X, are we going to say, well, you had it next level. You know, I was your gem. You know, and yet you didn't give me service when I wanted it, so I don't want you anymore. That can happen. We have experienced that happening in this classroom. Some didn't climb the ladder the way they wanted to climb the ladder. And climbing the ladder is not, here's another thing that isn't human logic. You could think that overseers are those who are more advanced. Not necessarily so. A person might